Hello, I'm really happy to read your toes, do this toe reading today. So when I'm looking at your toes, there's a few things that stick out. First of all, the very first thing that I see is how straight your toes are. This is a very, very good thing. So if you're looking here, you can see that these toes are straight. They're not clawed. They are not sticking up. You're well grounded. So this is a really beautiful, very positive thing is that your toes are straight. So this indicates flexible energy. There's some flexibility in your way of thinking, in your way of being. You're open to new ideas. You are open to new people and definitely thinking outside of the box and some a high skill of adaptability within certain situations and groups. So I love that. And please embrace that and really think about how that shows up for you in that adaptability and in that flexibility and out of the box thinking. Then the next thing that jumps out to me is the bunion that you have here on your right foot. When you have a bunion, it can indicate a few things. It can indicate feeling the weight of the world on your shoulders. So, really looking at the world and where we're at and feeling that weight. It can also indicate some trauma in a time in your life when you were perhaps too flexible and uh, swayed to the will of another power outside of yourself, even when you didn't want to, even if it was against your personal code. And so when we have our one on one together, I'd love to discuss more what's going on with this right foot and the bunion going on there, weight of the world, and uh, bending your will to someone else's, even if you are opposed to it, are the two things that are coming up there. So, what can you do about that? Well, one thing is just being aware of it. The awareness alone will start to create a shift in your energy and start to release that blocked energy. A bunion is calcified, blocked energy. And so we'll discuss that more. We also then are going to move here to moving into your great toes, these path toes. And so when we look at your path toes, they are looking a little bit to the future. Ideally, we would see these toes, especially as the independent thinker that you are, as being a little more straight and um, you're putting a lot of the weight of your body when you're standing on this outside part of your toe, which is causing it to look towards your little toes, which indicates a looking to the future. So the quote unquote positive part of this is that you have hope. There's hopefulness in you because you are looking to the future. Of course, the downside to this is that you're not in the present moment. And so looking to the future, hoping that something changes, hoping that things get better, hoping that you can make the impact that you desire, and not being in the present. So right now, I invite you to take a breath and just get very, very present. The past is already past. We can learn from it. The present moment is made up of the past. The past does indicate a trajectory of the future, and yet the decision for that is made right now in the now, and the future is completely unknown. And so the only thing that's real is the right now. And I know that you know this. So just take a breath and remind yourself of this. And as you take that breath in, just think of pushing that energy gently down into the feet, into the present moment to become even more grounded in the present and not need to look to the past. So when we talk about that life path and spirit path, let's first of all talk about the spirit path here on your right foot. Your life path here on your left. I'm not getting that right. Your life path here on your right foot. Thank you for your patience with that. So if you look at this toe, this is a really interesting toe to me because it looks really like it's pretty straight. I'd like to see it push just a little bit more towards the other foot. But if you look at this nail, and let's just do a side by side between the two nails. This nail is healthier. There's still some ridges in there, some set ideas, even just a little bit of fungus going on in there, which is an eating away. This nail, though, is very different from this nail. And again, this toe, if it was moved just a little bit more straight up, and the nail leaned just a little bit more center, that would be your ideal path toe. It is a grounded toe. You're grounded, you know your purpose. The question is, how are you living that purpose? And this toe isn't real happy that you're not living that purpose right now, because it is looking to the future, especially in this nail. And so making a plan right now about one thing that you can do to take action on your life path. Again, you know what your purpose is. This toe is telling me you know your purpose. The question is, what are you doing about it? Life path. There's more there. It's going to come to me later on. I know that there's more there. When we talk about your spirit path, this is one of the other things that really stood out to me when I first looked at your toes. If you look at the difference between these two toes, your spirit path seems less sure about where it is, where it's going, and even where it's been. The fungus indicates, and we see this in a few of your toenails, something literally eating at you. It is an energy that is simmering inside and is about to boil over. So what's eating you? What's eating at your soul? We'll discuss this more when we meet one-on-one, but really consider that question. What is eating at your soul? What are the questions and doubts that you have? Where do you feel unsupported in the spiritual realm, in your spirit path? So those will be good questions to consider, because this toe really is, of all of your toes, this is actually the least grounded toe. It's definitely facing towards the future, and we have this fungus, and it's in the whole toe. The whole toe wants to lean towards the future. So what are you expecting to have happen in the future? What do you hope for in the future that's causing that toe to lean so far there into the future? What's eating you spiritually? I feel like this could have something to do with the weight that you feel, the weight of the world on your shoulders. Perhaps part of your life path messaging is expressing these ideas that you have about spirituality, and that spirit path toe wants to be grounded, and it wants to express. These second toes, these communication toes. So from looking at these, they're a little longer than your first toe. In fact, they're the longest toe on your foot, which indicates that communication and self-expression is very high value to you. And so when we look at these toes, again, they're mostly straight. They are flexible and adaptable. There's some squareness to the end of these toes, which would indicate, especially with the fungus that you have going on in this one on the right foot, that perhaps there's some areas that you don't feel that you can fully self-express or communicate. Maybe there's some fear or insecurity around the way that you are expressing or communicating, or what roles do you feel like you must play in the way that you're expressing and in the way that you're communicating. So really journal about those things, really consider those things. Those are sneaky bits of ego. That's ego that's sneaking in through the back door or down the chimney or through the crack in the back window. Those ego stories of the roles that we think that we need to play. And I can tell by the squareness, Think about it. That's in the box. Squares are a box. And so there's something in the way that you're self-expressing and communicating that is in a box, and you don't like it because you are a free-spirited, divergent thinking individual. And so really considering what those things are and journaling about it. When it comes to self-expression in the outside world, because again, the right foot indicates how we are expressing and perceived in the outside world, you've got fungus going on there. So how does this show up? Is this insecurity in how people perceive you? Is this some hesitancy in putting yourself out there as you, your full self? Do you have ideas and opinions that are weighing on your shoulders that you're not expressing for whatever reason? It could be fear. It could be inability to fully express. Maybe they're not fully formed ideas. Or in the past, you've really felt like there was a box that you had to fit into, and you're still dealing from the aftermath of that. So looking at that, thinking about, pondering on, meditating on, journaling about that is going to be really, really impactful for you. If you couldn't fail, and if everyone still liked you, what would you want to fully express that may be taboo, that may be socially, quote unquote, unacceptable, and yet there's something in that that you want to express and communicate? What is it about that? Moving on to the second toe, the communication toe in your spirit path. What is your communication with spirit? How do you feel that that communication is? As I'm looking at your toes and reading your energy, I'm going to take a guess that sometimes you feel like when you are sending out a message or a prayer or a request to the divine, to the universe, that you feel like it hits a ceiling. And you're hoping that changes. You have hope, you have belief, you have faith. And the way that you're communicating is in a box, again, that squareness in that box, as well as tight. It's tight. And so imagining what it would be like if it was expansive, that there were no ceilings, if your requests were 100% received and you got the answers that you were seeking. What answers are you seeking? What is the way that you communicate with the divine? Is there a change up that you can do to that that would increase your ability to receive? This is all about that yin energy, that receptivity energy in receiving messages from the divine. One of the things that I'm finding very interesting about your toes is if we look here on the right communication expression toe, you've got some fungus going on. You don't in the left. However, in the third toe, it's just the opposite. You've got some fungus going on in here. So these are your action toes. So when it comes to taking action within yourself, what commitments do you not keep to yourself? And I'm also going to guess that in recent times, you've been less likely to keep commitments to yourself. And I'm saying that because if we look at where this point is, actually on both of your toes, but particularly pronounced on this left toe, this point is on the side that's looking to the past. So in the past, you have perhaps kept commitments to yourself in a more integrous way, and there might be commitments that you are not keeping to yourself right now. And so paying attention to what are those commitments? What are the things that you want to take action on that you're not taking action on? It's literally eating you from the inside. One of the things that I love so much about toe reading is before the symptoms will show up in our bodies, we can see them in our toes if we know what to look for. And from a health perspective, on all the levels, mental, spiritual, physical, emotional, taking these actions for yourself that you desire that's a really important step for you to take. Because right now the not taking action is eating you up. So again, asking you those questions, what are the things? This goes along with the way you want to express in the outside world and these actions that you want to take within yourself. And what structures do you want in place? What structures would be supportive to you in taking these actions that you desire within yourself? Looking at the action toe on the right side, my guess is that you are very good at keeping your commitments to other people. You show up and do what you say you're going to do. That is an absolutely beautiful thing. And keep doing that. And as you show up more for yourself, just like you show up for others, I think you're going to notice a pretty rapid change in this action toe. Your third toe, action toe here, is looking to your communication toe on both feet. They're really looking at each other. And so almost an interdependence is happening here. And so if that communication and action are not aligned and in integrity with each other, they're going to look at each other and almost blame each other. Well, if you would have, the inner dialogue might be something like, well, if you would have taken action, well, if you would have communicated better. Those kinds of internal dialogues could be going on, obviously some version of that. So explore into that. What's your inner dialogue saying to you? And take action for yourself as well as you take action for others. One of the things that I really love about your toes are these relationship toes. I can see that you have done a lot of personal work in your relationships and in how you show up in your relationships. And this has to do with the action. What are your primary love languages? And I'm going to guess that one of your primary love languages is acts of service and words of affirmation, simply because communication is important to you. And then with these relationship toes, which clearly you've done a lot of work on your relationships, they are straight. There is some blocked energy in there. There's definitely some things going on as far as blocked energy, some areas that you would like to improve in your relationships. And yet just look at this toe on the right side. You are good in relationships. You know how to create positive relationships, and you know how to serve in those relationships. You know how to show up. This nail, nice and straight. Now, here's the other thing that it does, and why I would guess that words or that action or acts of service are really important to you, because it's leaning into or even starting to cover up perhaps that action toe. Relationships are very high value to you, and you show up well in them. I would recommend some manual manipulation in these toes. So you get your toes and you just gently rub them, because there is some blocked energy in here. And as you do that, especially with the intention of discovering where are your blocks when it comes to relationships, and you can do this with all of your toes. I'm just really feeling it for these relationship toes. Where are your blocks in your relationships, and having those come up so that you can then have awareness and do something about it. Now let's look at the difference between your action toe here and your action toe here. So this is your action toe on your left foot, meaning how you are internally. So this toe's just a tiny bit confused. It's looking to the future with the nail, looking a little bit to the past with the toe. But again, this is a toe that's got some blocked energy. This is your relationship with yourself. This has everything to do with all of these other toes. So the way that you present on the outside is largely put together. You are an absolute leader. You know where you're going, you know what your purpose is, and you know how to show up and take action. Even if the actions don't give you all the traction that you were hoping that they would give you, you know how to take action, and you will continue to do that. On your left foot, again, this relationship has to do with maybe that you don't always take your commitments to yourself as seriously as you take commitments to others. And so there's an indicator for a structure to build within yourself. If you know that you are highly motivated and apt to show up if someone is quote unquote depending on you, or you've made a commitment to someone else, make a commitment to someone else about yourself. Maybe that is, whatever practices that you want to do, and you make a commitment to someone else that you're going to do that with yourself. It's like an accountability partner or a capability partner, or what I like to call an affirmative partner, where you are helping each other because you know that you're accountable only to yourself. And that's part of what's eating you, is that you are not always taking the same respect for yourself that you do for those outside of you. And, in the personal development world, we know a lot. And sometimes your brain probably goes on and thinks, really pay attention to what you're saying to yourself. Thinks about all the ways that you're not showing up for yourself, and that we should be self-inspired and everything. And those are all good things. And yet, if we know that by having a commitment outside of ourselves will help us get what we want inside of ourselves, why would we not take that little shortcut instead of continuing to fight against ourselves or feel bad about ourselves because perhaps self-inspiration is not coming at that particular time? So this is an indicator to me of a structure to be built. All right, let's look at these fifth toes. And I'm going to talk about your sixth toes first. You have small sixth toes, and it's not actually a sixth toe, clearly, but it's when from the little toe, it moves out and we create this bump here. And a lot of big world changers have what looks like a sixth toe, which indicates a global perspective, a broad view. You're really able to see things like, like the falcon over the forest. And so what a gift, that sixth toe. And how that fits in with your life path is connected and powerful. So how does your global perspective tie in with this life path toe? And what does that global perspective and impact mean to you? What scale does that look like to you? And do you find it frustrating when you know that you can bring about a huge difference and impact in the world, and it feels like it's on a very small scale? And I invite you to remember and to really take into yourself that from a small circle, the ripple effect goes out. And that's what creates global impact. Even people that we see on the world scale that are just making a huge difference on the global scale, that's not where they started out. And even if that's not your goal, or if it is, but that's not where you end up, the global impact can happen within that small circle. I know you know this. I'm affirming it for you and inviting you to remember that and to really embrace that. Okay, sixth toe, global perspective. Now we're going to go to your actual fifth toe, which is your trust and prosperity toe. This has to do with the earth element. It is our groundedness to the earth. So again, one of the things that I noticed about your feet and toes right from the beginning was that groundedness. And so we're going to talk about your right foot here. Again, you are meant to be a person who is with people. Yes, connection with people is incredibly important. And putting your trust in people that you can trust is also important. You do not need to carry the weight of the world on you. You are a trustworthy person, and there are other people in this world that are trustworthy. Who are they? And releasing guilt, shame, fear from times when you have put trust in people who proved themselves to not be trustworthy in the past. You have the potential right here in this toe, I can see it, to really create great prosperity for yourself and for those in your circles. And so I'm going to say that again. In this toe, there's very little blocked energy. It is facing to the future. And in the present moment and in the future, you have everything that it takes to receive great prosperity and to provide opportunities for others to also have great prosperity. That was a very big intuitive hit that came to me, so please embrace that. When we look over here at your right fifth toe, your left fifth toe, again, internally, I would really love to look at your astrological chart to just see where some of your planets lay out, because that can be informative at an even higher level. And so working on your internal self, your spirit self, and really believing deeply and trusting yourself that you can have prosperity, that you have what it takes, that you have the connection with spirit. And so when we're looking this overall between the two toes, the way you show up in the world is very, very powerful, very connecting to people. What you've got going on inside, especially inside your mind, is an area to focus on and work on. Finding those patterns that no longer serve you. Obviously, they served you at some level, or you never would have picked them up. I really disagree with this idea that we have ideas and beliefs that don't serve us. If they didn't serve us at some level, we would not pick them up. Our animal brain just would not allow us to do it. Now, one of the main beliefs that we think don't serve us, but actually did at some point and at some age, is, we're afraid to not be a part of the pack. We're afraid to not fit in because, as you know, a few millennia ago, if you weren't with the pack, that meant certain death. So our animal brains go on overdrive, thinking that we need to take on these beliefs and fit in with the pack. And you are not meant to fit in with the pack as a follower. You are meant to be a leader or a first follower, which is also a leader, because there is no leadership if you don't have first followers in many aspects of your life. That is what you are on this planet to do. And you are still riddled with self-doubt. So I invite you to really focus on what are those self-doubts that you have. What is the mind mess that you have going on that you say to yourself? When you're talking to someone, what do you say to yourself afterward? What's the inner dialogue about that? Please know that you show up very powerfully. And as you do this internal work, you are going to show up more powerfully and really be able to create this impact that we see in this life path toe in such a high level. I would really love to see your toes again in 3 months. I think as you explore these questions, journal, meditate, write out your own questions, that you're going to start to see a change in these toes sooner rather than later. So there's a few things that I'm going to recommend. Obviously, what we do internally. I'm going to recommend some massage on all of those toes. So I like to take right here on this part of my finger and my thumb and just kind of gently rub those toes. I would also recommend feel into this, but find a natural like peroxide or ethanol, or there are some other products on the market that are natural and good for you, and spray it on those toes with the intention, especially on those left toes, especially on the toes that you've got some of the fungus going on in, with the intention that you are feeding your soul, that you are no longer eating away at your soul, but rather that you are nourishing and nurturing your soul. I recommend an Epsom salt bath for your feet, especially with some nurturing lavender oil, and maybe just a touch of peppermint oil with that lavender oil, or some other soothing oil, chamomile. Having a chamomile tea with the Epsom salt bath with lavender, that's what I'm seeing for your feet right now. They would feel very nurtured by that. Nurture yourself and really embrace that inner yin energy. Your left foot obviously represents the yin, your right foot, the yang energy. So cultivating that yin energy, and most of all, receiving. You are a giver. Allow yourself to receive whatever that looks like. It's been an honor to read your toes. I'm looking forward to connecting with you and having our one-on-one session.